All right, let's get to 12 through 9.
Okay, so 12, I have Phillip Rivers. Then I have Ben Roethlisberger at 11. Matthew Stafford comes in at number 10 for me. And Matt Ryan comes in at number 9. So I go back-to-back Matts there in the top 10. And just to touch on Stafford, since we already talked about him, he's just put up such great numbers. He's been very consistent. And even though he's had some injury problems over the years, he's also had a lot of seasons where he's just played the full 16 games, even while dealing with injuries, and has still done enough to lead, what has mostly been at best decent Lions teams to kind of being at least within the wild card hunt. So I have a lot of respect for him. So I felt like putting him in the top 10 on my list. He was deserving, even if there are some questions about him this year. And, maybe I'll eat my words on that, but I still think he's a top 10 quarterback at this point in time.
I hope he is. That would mean that his back is healthy and he could have a great year. It's such a shame that he's been with the Lions for this long. Like if he was with a good organization, I feel like he would have gotten to the playoffs a lot. So it's just a shame. Like I said before, I'm concerned about his health. My 12 through 9 is 12 Phillip Rivers, so we agree on that. 11 Kyler Murray, so 3 spots ahead of you there. 10 Josh Allen, and that's our biggest disagreement. And then 9 Matt Ryan. So we have 2 guys similarly in the 12 through 9 range. But yeah, Josh Allen, like I talked about, touched on briefly. Like I feel like with his upside, and I said before, I thought he was a 3-year project coming in. I think this is going to be the year he makes a big leap. Could be wrong. Like, he is a low floor for sure. But I think his ceiling is just through the roof, and I think he's going to have a great year. But I thought it was funny that we both rank Rivers and Ryan 12 and 9 respectively.
It's funny, too, because Rivers at 12 was somehow the second easiest quarterback to rank on this list, outside of number 1, which we'll get to eventually. I'm sure there's no suspense for that on anyone's part who's watching. But, yeah, I think for me, Rivers, it's like, people harp on, the interceptions. He was bad last year. But in reality, it's like he's been playing with a terrible offensive line his whole career and is going to a team with the best offensive line in the league. And, similarly solid weapons to what he had in Los Angeles / San Diego. So I think having him there makes a lot of sense. And, Matt Ryan is another guy who's kind of flown under the radar, in my opinion. Not always, but, he had that one MVP year, got the Falcons to the Super Bowl. But he's been a very good quarterback for that team, and he's had good weapons around him. But again, he's another quarterback whose offensive line play hasn't always been good, and he's still managed to make his team competitive. So I think he deserves a lot of credit for that. I still can't believe he's like 35 now. Like, that's mind blowing to me, because I remember like watching him when he was at Boston College, because I'm a big BC fan. Now he's 35 and still in the league with the Falcons and still doing well.
Yeah, I remember Mike Mayock yelling about him coming from Boston College. It felt like it was yesterday, and now he's 35. It's kind of nuts. I don't think I talked about it on this podcast or the mock drafts that we do. But I came to the realization in Las Vegas when I was there a couple weeks ago that I like Atlanta to win the Super Bowl at 80-1 odds. Now, if they were like 30-1, I wouldn't bet them, but I think 80-1, I feel like they're a great long shot, because if you think about it, they finished 6-2 to close out the year last year. They drafted 2 offensive linemen in the first round. One of them, Chris Lindstrom, barely played last year because of injury. So they're going to have him. It's basically another draft pick that they're getting on the offensive line. Obviously, they have great offensive threats like Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, Todd Gurley. They got Hayden Hurst, who was a former first-round pick, so I think he could do well in that offense. Obviously, they have Matt Ryan, and their defense added Dante Fowler, to the pass rush. I know their secondary is a big question mark. The corners might be terrible this year, but if they start the year well, they could trade for a corner. And I like their defensive backs coach, who improved things in the second half of the year. Quick thoughts on that? Like, am I crazy in liking Atlanta 80-1?
I got burned last year by Atlanta, as you know, and it was well publicized on this podcast. I picked Atlanta to win the Super Bowl, and then they started the year 1-7, and I felt like an absolute fool. But I could see the argument for it. Their offense is certainly talented enough, and defense, their front 7 is solid. I don't think it's great, but they've added some nice pieces to it. I think Grady Jarrett constantly goes under the radar. Dante Fowler's coming off a good year, and I really like Deion Jones. I think he's a great linebacker. Secondary, massive concern. AJ Terrell would have to come in and be really a true number 1 cornerback, I think, for them. in order for them to find success. But that said, I think they did just sign Darqueze Dennard to play the slot. I really like that move. He's a solid player, and he really should have been picked up before now. I think he was, and his deal got voided by a failed physical or something like that. But we'll see what they ultimately do. I would love to see them add like another veteran corner if they think they're truly going to compete. I know Logan Ryan is still out there. I think he would be a really good fit there. He was super productive in Tennessee last year, though he did get burned. So anyway, I could see Atlanta at 80-1. I love the offense enough that I'd consider betting it, but the defense gives me just enough pause that with my history of betting them last year, I won't do it, but I will root for them since you have done it.
Well, thank you. I will say, though, our super contest proxy, Andy, who is I've worked with him for about a decade now, kind of crazy how time flies. He loves Atlanta 80-1, and he's a professional bettor. So so I after talking to him, he kind of convinced me. I'm like, okay, I'm going to bet this team. So hopefully the $50 to win 4,000 thing comes through. That'd be nice. All right, 8-5. Go ahead.
Okay, so this is where we're going to probably have a lot of overlap from here on out. So I have Carson Wentz at 8, Drew Brees at 7, Lamar Jackson at 6, and Aaron Rodgers checks in at number 5 for me.
Okay, Rodgers at 5. So when you said before that everyone would know who our number 1 is, I was kind of thinking, do they? Because the NFL Top 100 had Lamar Jackson as the number 1 player. So do you want to talk about where you have him why you have him number 6 as I enter my 8 through 5?
Yeah, I think Lamar Jackson had a fantastic year last year. He was MVP, well-deserving, really led that Baltimore team to new heights. And the big thing with him was he improved his passing ability massively. Like, he was an excellent runner as a rookie, but kind of, I don't want to call him suspect, but kind of middle of the road passer at that time. But in the offseason, he improved greatly and was much better throwing the ball, and that allowed him to open things up for him to run more. So, I could see him being anywhere as high as like a top 3 quarterback on people's lists. I just haven't met this juncture because I still think he needs to improve his passing a little bit, just his accuracy, his downfield ability, and his ability to read the field. But he was spectacular last year. I just think also there's been some losses on offense. I think seeing how he does without Marshall Yanda blocking for him is going to be big. Because one of the big things, the reason that he had so much success running is because the offensive line blocked well, gave him time to read the field, and he was able to scramble. So I have him a little bit lower just because I'm kind of factoring in a tiny bit of regression after last year. But I don't think there's any doubt that he's a top 6 quarterback. And again, you convinced me he's a top 3 quarterback.
Okay, well, I guess I have some doubt because I have Lamar Jackson at 7. Okay. Pretty close. I have Wentz at 8 like you do, Jackson at 7, Drew Brees at 6, and Deshaun Watson at 5. So we flip-flopped Jackson and Brees. So with Lamar Jackson, to me, like he's not there as a passer yet. Like I rewatched the 2019 season. Like he's phenomenal at times. Like he really is. And his rushing ability is like through the roof, obviously. And like, that's something that's not going to last forever. Like we saw it with Robert Griffin. We saw it with Vince Young. Like they came into the league, they ran all over defenses, and then they eventually had to stop running because they had injuries. And like we seen Jackson say this offseason that he wants to throw more, and like that would worry me as if I were a Ravens fan, like because like Jackson's best attribute. It's his legs, like obviously. So if he's throwing more and not running as much, the Ravens aren't going to be as successful. I think you brought up a great point about Marshall Yanda. His protection is not going to be as great. Like Jackson was phenomenal last year, but one of the reasons for that was the offensive line. Like I feel like the Ravens had the best offensive line in the NFL. That may not be the case anymore without Yanda. So those are all concerns. Having said that, like Jackson works super hard. Like he's one of the hardest workers in the NFL, and I think he will improve as a passer, and I think he will get better. I just don't know if he's going to get there this year. But then again, I have him number 7, so I definitely like him a lot. Deshaun, I want to say Deshaun Watson for a little bit later, and I guess, well, you have Aaron Rodgers 5, so I guess we can talk about it now. Like I couldn't decide whether I liked Aaron Rodgers more than Deshaun Watson. Like it was so close to me.
Yeah, no, I had trouble with Aaron Rodgers versus Deshaun Watson because I think Aaron Rodgers is going to have a great year because I think the team pissed him off by drafting Jordan Love. I think that's one reason I was considering Rodgers before, the likes of Watson and Tom Brady. But the reality of the situation is, I think that Rodgers has a worse supporting cast. He's also older and has battled injuries. I still think he's an elite quarterback by every definition of the word. But I just think like where Deshaun Watson is younger and, just has unbelievable escapability. Like the thing that I hearken back to when I think about how good Deshaun Watson is against the Raiders last year. He was like going to be dragged down by his helmet, spun out of it, and I think he almost, if not did, throw a touchdown pass that like won the Texans the game. And the fact that he's been able to overcome Bill O'Brien's coaching is just that's really what put him above for Aaron Rodgers for me, because Mike McCarthy at the end of his tenure kind of fell apart. Things fell apart there, but I think Rodgers has had better coaching in general throughout his career than Deshaun Watson has had for sure.
Well, I was about to say, like, Watson has overcome Bill O'Brien, but Rodgers overcame Mike McCarthy. So they both have had some terrible coaching, and you wonder how many Super Bowls Rodgers would have won had he had good coaching. It was super close for me. I think the one thing I will say, though, is that Deshaun Watson has always had DeAndre Hopkins. So we're going to see Deshaun Watson without DeAndre Hopkins for the first time. That said, he's still my number 5 quarterback. So I love Watson. I think he's a great quarterback. I could be wrong about him with Rodgers. I just think that, if you point a gun to my head and you're like, which quarterback do you think do you want to win this game? I think I would choose Rodgers over Watson, but it was super close.
That's like, we got to get Family Feud style survey. Like, do that. Like, we surveyed 100 people. You need one quarterback to win this game. See what people answer, because I think I might pick Deshaun Watson, but you could really convince me either way.
Yeah, like I said, it's super close. It would be fun. It would be fun to do that. Just ask like legitimate football fans what they think. That'd be cool. All right.